above the world so high, like a diamond in the sky.
The internet has changed our lives in a variety of different ways. We can send emails to friends, contact our friends over Facebook, watch our favourite movies on YouTube, or even something just as simple as reading a newspaper article from the benefits of our own phones. But what happens when you go to the dark web, the deep web, a place for the faint of heart, probably should never go to? This story delves into what happens when you go to the deep web, and just like the author states, you can find some very dark places on the internet, if you know where to look. I'm sure by this point, you've heard all about the deep net. It's been talked about more and more in relation to places like Silk Road, and child pornography rings the world over. I've even heard about a website where people were able to buy and sell children. Despite all of these dark secrets lurking in the recesses of the internet, nothing could have prepared me for Martinet. If you were to ask me where I first heard about it, I could not even give a coherent answer. It's like bits and pieces. Its existence started reaching me over the years. Even from the fragments of knowledge I had about it, I could tell it was a place that I was not even remotely fucked up enough to venture into. Unfortunately, I wound up falling for a girl who was fated to lead me right down the rabbit hole. Her name was Amanda, and we were talking statistics 120 together every Thursday night. I'm normally really bad at approaching girls, but when she introduced herself as a Sedona native, I jumped at the chance to make fun of the vortex that so many Sidonians believe in. "So how many aliens have you seen?" I asked. A few other people around the class looked at me like I was stupid, but I could tell that Amanda got it. She just smiled back at me and said, 3, actually. After sitting together for a few more classes, we finally decided to hang out outside of school. She invited me back to her place, and we smoked some weed and listened to some folky Pandora stations. It wasn't until a few shots of tequila got thrown into the mix that things started to heat up. I'd just gotten a top off when she suddenly looked at me weird, like she just remembered something. "I shouldn't," she said quietly. "I think you really like me." "What gave you that idea?" "It would just be meaningless for me," she said. That hurt, honestly. As down as I am for meaningless sex, I was a little too enamoured by her to just let something like that bounce off me. I don't know if it was just the situation, or the added shots of tequila and pot, but I was at a loss for words. It was like she just shut off, awkwardly. I rolled off of bed and got dressed, and showed myself out. The next week, she never showed up to class. It wasn't until then I really tried calling her up and getting a hold of her, but she wouldn't answer any of my calls, and she wasn't responding to me on Facebook. After another week went by, I got desperate and drove out to her apartment. The front door was unlocked, but no one was inside. I was on the verge of calling the police, but I figured maybe I should look around a little more. Shamelessly, I opened up a laptop and looked around. That was where I found the torrent download for the program Martinet. She'd already installed it and had a window minimized. When I clicked the shortcut, it brought up a chat log between her and a few other users in a private conversation. They had been talking about prices. Apparently the 3 other users had agreed to pay her $20,000 for something. I felt suddenly sick to my stomach. Was it for sex? Was she a prostitute or something? Desperately I scrolled up to find out more information, but the last thing I saw was a date before I heard the door slam shut. Monday night at 3 AM on Alpha server. "Hello?" came a familiar voice. "Is someone in here?" "It's me," I said, figuring I ought to just get it over with. "What the fuck, Leo?" "I was worried about you." "Well, don't. You don't even know me. What makes you think you can just come into my house like this?" I apologised again and again, but she wasn't calming down. Even in her anger I could tell there was something very different about her. She had deep bags under her eyes, and she looked paler than usual. On her head she had tied a purple bandana, covering up her already thin hair. "Just get the hell out and don't come here again. You were just a thing. An accident." I pretended not to be hurt by that, and closed the door behind me on my way out. All I could think about on the drive home was how sickly she looked. Had she always been that way and I never noticed? What was she getting into? It was almost impossible to concentrate in class for the following few days. I hadn't known Amanda for that long, but I felt compelled to know what was going to happen. I couldn't just forget about everything. So on Monday afternoon, I downloaded the Martinet client and acquainted myself with the program. It's fairly easy to navigate. There's only 5 servers, Alpha, Beta, etc. I flipped through a few of them, but nothing was going on. Only on the Delta server did I see a small chat bar with 4 users, 2 of which had prices besides the names. Apparently, all of the servers are free to watch, as long as the shows have been paid for by someone. In Delta server, at that time there was a girl with tribal tattoos, sticking all kinds of miscellaneous objects inside of herself. Anything the paying users called out, she would somehow conjure from outside the screen. I was getting more and more nervous as the day wore on. By the time 3 AM rolled around, there were at least 20 users in the room. At the top of the chat bar were the 3 paying users I had seen on Amanda's computer, each sharing portions of the $20,000. Suddenly, the black screen lit up, and I was looking at her beautiful, green eyes. She looked even worse than when I had seen her. Was she sick? "Hi everyone," she said, forcing a smile. "I guess word got around. I haven't seen the server this full since that one girl painted a portrait of herself naked, using her own shit as a medium." The chat bar started filling with people's reactions and side conversations about the shit show. Amanda just sat, motionless, reading what they all had to say. So far I was relieved to see that she wasn't naked, although she wasn't fully dressed either. She was wearing the same turquoise panties and bra that I had seen the last night I spent with her. Even though she was emaciated, she still looked beautiful, in a haunting kind of way. "I guess there's not much more to say." Her voice sounded restricted, like it kept getting caught in her throat. "Thank you guys for offering me so much. My family really needs it after all of the medical bills they've had to pay because of me. They'll be confused at first, but it will all work out somehow." In the chat bar, a few people were placing bets on something. It was apparently something they knew about the show that I didn't, because they kept making bets on random numbers. "I'll bet you $50 she can't make it past 3, said one user. "Look how sick she is. She won't go beyond 2. And on the betting went. I saw Amanda's eyes rove over the conversation, and her face turned a paler kind of green colour. She tried to smile, but all she managed to do was make her lip tremble. She was absolutely shaking, and so was I. What was I about to see? "Okay," she croaked. She was crying now. A single tear welled up in the corner of her eye and ran down her cheek as she waved to the monitor after wiping her nose. "Okay," she said again. Now her face was red, soaked in the tears that kept coming. "Enjoy the show." And she rolled back in her chair, further from the monitor. Suddenly I could see something silver in her hands. It was a kitchen knife, an absurdly large kitchen knife with a wooden handle. She took it into both of her hands and raised it with the tip pointed at her abdomen. And she thrust, with a little grunt. She drove the knife into her abdomen. And when she removed it, the blood ran so thick it looked like it was inky black. I thought the screen had gone blurry at first, but then I realised I was crying just as hard as she was, yet she soldiered on. Everyone lost the bet. By the time her arm went limp and the knife had fallen to the floor, she'd thrust it into her stomach 10 times. $20,000 for that, said one user. Some guy just had the most extreme climax of his life. I just sat there, numb, staring at a bleeding body, wondering if I should call the cops or an ambulance or something. But there was another feeling, one I couldn't as easily recognise within me. I had just watched someone die, right in front of my eyes. Though the tears kept coming, I couldn't help but feel suddenly very alive. Sick, but alive. I waited a respectful 10 minutes or so before wiping my eyes dry. Everything felt so numb and tingly and fucking alive. So I flipped over to the beta server to see what else was on.